Welcome to America Current Affairs, where we break down the biggest stories. Today, we've got a huge one out of India, a court decision that's really sparking a firestorm over some tough questions about justice, security, and one very controversial anti-terror law. Okay, just imagine this for a second. Imagine being locked away for 5 entire years, not because you've been proven guilty of anything, but because you're still waiting for a trial to even begin. Well, for 2 student activists in India, that's not imagination, it's reality. And their wait just got longer. The country's highest court just denied them a chance at freedom, and the decision is creating a massive debate. Okay, let's dive right into this. To really get what's going on here, we actually have to go back in time, 5 years back to be exact, to a time when India's capital was in the middle of some really intense protests. So it all starts back in early 2020. Protests kick off over a new citizenship law, but things take a turn, and they explode into deadly riots right in Delhi. It was bad. In the aftermath, the police looked at all this and said, nope, this wasn't random. They believed it was a planned conspiracy. And by September, they'd arrested these 2 activists, pointing the finger at them as the masterminds. For years, they asked for bail, and for years, the lower courts said no. Which brings us to today and the final word from the Supreme Court. After 5 years, they're staying right where they are. So you've got to be asking, right? Why? Why have they been in jail for so long without a trial? And what makes getting bail so incredibly hard? Well, the answer comes down to one really powerful and really controversial law. It's called the UAPA. And you have to understand, this is not your average everyday criminal law. It was specifically designed to fight terrorism and major threats to the country. And because of that, it plays by a totally different set of rules, especially when it comes to letting someone out of jail before their trial. So what is it? What makes this law so different from everything else? Well, it takes a core principle of justice and it flips it completely upside down.
Check this out. Under normal law, we have that famous saying, right? Innocent until proven guilty. So the jail door is basically unlocked, and it's the government's job to convince a judge that it needs to be locked. But under the UAPA, oh no. The door starts locked, bolted, and chained shut. The burden of proof is on you, the person accused, to prove that the police's case against you is just unbelievable, right from the get-go. And that is an unbelievably high wall to climb.
So with that in mind, when this case finally landed in the Supreme Court, the judges weren't actually trying to decide if these activists are guilty or innocent. That's for a full trial, which remember still hasn't even happened. No, they were looking at one and only one very specific question. Now, prima facie is just some fancy lawyer speak for at first sight or on the face of it. So all the judges had to do was look at the police's version of events and ask themselves, hey, does this story seem believable? Is it plausible on the surface? They didn't need hard proof. They just needed a story that held together. And what was that story? Well, according to the prosecution, this was never just a simple protest. They said it was a calculated conspiracy to create something called a chukka jam. Basically a total blockade of all the roads, designed to bring the entire capital city to a dead stop. And they argue that using speeches and WhatsApp groups to organize this wasn't just protest. It was an act intended to cause widespread chaos, which, under the UAPA law, can be defined as a terrorist act. And here's where the court made a really critical distinction. It essentially sorted the accused people into 2 different buckets. In one bucket, you had the facilitators, the people who were more on the ground, and some of them, they actually got bail. But the court saw these 2 activists, Umar and Sharjeel, in a completely different light. They were seen as the alleged architects, the masterminds with a foundational role in the whole plan. And because of that central role, the court said their doors stay locked. So look, this whole thing is way bigger than just these 2 individuals. This decision throws a huge global dilemma right into the spotlight, that constant tug of war between keeping a nation secure and protecting an individual's liberty. And let's be very clear, we can't forget that the 2020 riots were absolutely tragic. 54 people lost their lives. So the government's argument is that you need powerful laws like the UAPA to prevent this kind of horror, to stop organized threats before they can explode into violence. But then, on the other side of that coin, you have critics and human rights groups who are absolutely sounding the alarm. They're asking, does a law this strict, a law that can keep people locked up for years without a trial, end up being used as a weapon to silence dissent and crush the fundamental right to protest? And that's the massive question this case leaves us all with. And it's a question for every single democracy out there. Where do you draw that line? How does a country protect its people from violence without destroying the very freedoms that define it, like the right to speak out and disagree? There are no easy answers here, and you can bet this debate is going to rage on long after this verdict. What a story. It really shows how the scales of justice can tip so dramatically when national security is thrown into the mix. For more explainers that really get into these complex global stories, make sure you're following America Current Affairs.